Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Croatian Sensation podcast, and I'm joined here by no other than the guy, Nasty Nate Spear. How are you doing, Nate?
Good. Thanks for having me on the third episode. I feel privileged after James and Matt Jansen, which were great episodes, by the way. I listened to both of them, and
Oh, you did?
man, it was yeah, they're really
Thank
good,
you.
really good, and
Thank you.
got really in depth and asked some hard questions that I think some people might not ask. So especially with Matt, that was really good.
The
So
one with the one with Dallas.
yeah, there's some good
Yeah,
stuff there.
yeah.
And Matt's a
Nobody.
super smart guy. Anytime he talks, you can always learn something, pick something
Yeah,
up.
he
So
and he's an open book. Like he's not
yeah,
gonna he's not
he's not
gonna
hiding his
bullshit you.
secrets or he's lays
Do
it
you
all
know?
out on there.
Do you know him personally? Because personally, he's brutal. Like
Oh
he
yeah,
keeps it real. He
yeah, definitely.
doesn't. Yeah, I love him because whenever I ask him something, he always and he's not like one of those guys that he's a coach, and whenever you ask him something, it's like buy my program. He's not that
Yeah,
guy. He's not that guy. So I always had respect. He gets a lot of shit. He gets a lot of controversy around him. Not sure
yeah,
why, because he's a great coach
yeah,
and great guy. So
yeah. I think it's just a young guy with a lot of success, and sometimes that can be,
a problem.
I don't know. Some people can not like that. So
Yeah, speaking of him as a coach and you as a competitor, it all combines into you competing with his client, his main client probably right now, and that's Nick Walker in the Supers at this show. For those of you that don't know, which is crazy to me, that if you don't know Nate Spear, man, you should try golf. For those that don't know, Nate gets in ridiculous shape. He is one of the top guys in the amateur ranks. Unfortunately, still in the amateur ranks in the United States. He got fifth at the North Americans last year, right? Or the year
second
before?
actually,
Second, I'm sorry. And you were
𝐘𝐨𝐫𝐤.
and you were top five the year before, right?
Actually, I was I think seventh at USA's before, so that was like really my breakout year last year,
Yeah,
where
okay.
I
So you
finally
were
cracked into the first call out and really was placing well.
yeah. Now I remember. I had to refresh my memory. Yeah. So second to 𝐘𝐨𝐫𝐤. Well, that's
Yeah.
that's not a bad second place to be honest. I mean, he was trying, since
Oh
like
yeah.
2015 at the NAs, and it took him
Yeah.
5 tries.
Yeah.
So that
He's a
was a
good
good
guy
one.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's great. He's awesome as
Yeah.
well. Another Jensen, past Jensen
Yeah.
client.
Yeah.
Um, then you went on to the Nationals, and that's like I think that's your like real breakout show because Nationals have more press, I think, because it's the
Yeah.
last qualifier, it's the Nationals, Phil Heath. No, I'm sorry, Lee Haney, Camille Levrone, Tom
Right.
Prince,
It's
all
a
except, yeah, very
prestigious
prestigious
show.
show.
Yeah.
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 So that's when you also missed the pro card by basically placing. Was that a
Yeah.
little hard for you?
Yeah, that one was hard because a lot of people might not have seen because maybe there wasn't a lot of press or media. But what happened is it's a 2 day show. And after Friday prejudging, it was looking like I was third. And, I brought probably the best package I could have brought. It was crazy condition, dry, you know what I mean? And I thought it could have either, usually I'm pretty realistic with my placings, but that one was one I could have seen I could be second or even first, you know what I mean, with the other guys. And what happened was Saturday night at finals, they rejudged us. So we got to get compared again with each other, the top five. And I was in the middle at the end of that. And I was like, holy shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe I did it. And then they're like, nope, you're still third. I was like, oh, fuck.
Fuck.
so,
That's the
so it was one of
worst.
those things where you're like, and the crowd was like going nuts. And like, it was like one of those moments where you're like, man, this is like an exciting moment. But then like, you're standing there waiting to be maybe awarded something different than you thought. And they're like, oh, no, just kidding. you know?
Yeah,
So it
it's
was one of those things where it was like, I guess for a second there, you thought there was like a little bit of hope for you. And then you're like, oh, shit. I mean, and not only that, like North Americans, like last year, when I got second, it was such a high for me because I never even been in top 5 or first call out. So to get second, I was like, holy shit. Like, even if I didn't get first, I was just so excited because I finally felt like I belonged as a national competitor and actually had some confidence now. And so then going into nationals, it's sort of like I had an expectation of hopefully turning pro or, you know, being in the top 2 spots. So it was almost like, it wasn't a letdown, I guess, but it was just definitely more deflating, I guess, I would say.
And those that don't know, Ben Rafala was second, and first, who won?
Jonas, I can't remember how you say his last name, but it's supposed to see
Yeah,
those client. He
yeah,
came out of
yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah, from
So that's
15th
another,
to first. Yeah.
yeah, that's another guy that sort of
Wasn't
never
he?
really
Didn't
cracked
he
top
look like
5.
crap at the, or he was a heavyweight or something like that at the North Americans, and then he
Yeah, he
went into
never
the
really hit
supers.
his mark, and then he just sort of showed up. He was diced, you know what I mean? And he was
Yeah, it's one
he's
of the,
big and
yeah.
tall, so you know, he looked great. So it's not taking anything away from those guys, you know what I mean? It's just sort of, uh, I think it was pretty close, you know what I mean? Whereas Cade, I could see the justification there. He's just a big boy, big structure, you know what I mean? He's 6'2", you know, 275 probably,
6'3",
in really good, yeah, in
6'2".
really good shape. And I'm 5'10", so it's sort of like, there's a big discrepancy, I guess, as far as what they're looking for, maybe.
And he was
And where
kind of, I don't know, I thought he could have taken it the year before
the year
against
before, yeah,
Ron
or be,
Gordon.
yeah,
It was
that was
close.
another thing too. Yeah, definitely.
So I think they had to reward him, going
Yeah,
into next year, which is fine. You have to.
yeah,
I hate to say that, but sometimes you have to give it up to the guy that's been there,
yeah,
and
right.
that's fine for me as well. If I lose to someone like that, that's
Yeah,
completely fine. But to lose to someone that's not there yet, that
right, right.
like Ben wasn't on point. By the way, I
Yeah.
love Ben's physique. I'm a
Oh yeah,
huge fan. He has an amazing fucking,
crazy.
like,
Yeah,
but on stage it doesn't translate as much. I don't know why. Like his legs,
yeah.
right? I mean, you were
He doesn't.
there.
He tends to. He has a crazy shape, obviously, in his structure. He's very wide, and he just opens up like crazy. So I mean, he has potential as far as like pro wise as he grows. He's gonna be like insane if he keeps doing that. I don't know what his plans are, but the
I don't
problem
know
is,
what
I
he's
think
doing,
with
man. He's like doing sprints and shit. I don't
yeah,
know.
I think he's being a cop now, but I'm sure he'll come back around. He's hard to
He's
get out
going
of
the
that.
Flex Wheeler Ronnie Coleman route.
Yeah, but
Except,
like his physique,
yeah,
he always looks great in his pictures leading up, and then sort of on stage. I think I don't know if it's like a flat issue or just muscle maturity issue, but it's almost like he has like a softer look on
yeah,
stage.
yeah,
It's almost like, you know, some guys, like it's like Derek sometimes when he first coming up, Lunsford. It's like in pictures, it's insane, and then he sort of is a little bit like softer. Obviously, Derek's much better, but like it's
yeah,
almost like that young muscle, like Regan Grimes, one of
yeah.
those guys where it's like in pictures you're like holy shit, and then it doesn't translate as well on stage.
Yeah, when you put on the color and the oil and the
Yeah,
lights,
yeah, they sort of lose a
and
little
then
bit
you
of pop.
compare to someone like Nate Spear,
Yeah,
you tend to lose a little bit on the conditioning factor. So, yeah,
yeah,
at
but I
that
could see
show,
like
yeah,
Ben has, if I was a judge, you know what I mean, and I gave it to Ben, my reason would be he probably does have a better structure and potential to be a better pro, honestly. So maybe that could be a reason, but I'm not really
I,
sure the reason why.
I think they gave it to him because he was a little bit rounder throughout the whole
Yeah,
body. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
his
yeah, yeah,
arm, he's more like a limb guy. His
yeah,
arms,
yeah.
his legs, it's really nicely put together. So maybe that's
That
why.
was
But
that was the thing too. Like we were talking about leading up to the show is like nationals. I was like peeled, but I was also like a little flat too because it was just like
a
you
little
get to
bit.
that point where
But I
you know what I
liked it.
mean.
I
Yeah,
personally like. I still think that's your best today, and
yeah,
we're gonna get to that. But I still think it's one of those shows when you're like peaked just right,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, definitely.
and you felt it, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I felt great. Yeah,
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's a spectacular feeling when you're on, and
Yeah, definitely.
then it doesn't really go your way, and then it's like,
Yeah.
what the fuck should I do next?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so, and then going into this year, obviously, what was your plan initially before the whole COVID thing? Was this the plan?
Not really. It's funny. I usually, so after nationals, my plan was to just wait and do nationals again. And then like we reversed out of nationals last year and everything was just sort of going very well. I was progressing. I felt like I was like adding some tissue in the right places. And then, it's sort of like the winter was starting to be over, like obviously with the coronavirus that hit. So that was sort of weird. I mean, I was still training, but it was not really quite the same. It was like at a CrossFit gym with like barbells and some lighter dumbbells and, not no machines or anything like that. Just sort of like making do with, I had enough plates to like squat heavy and stuff like that. So that was like my bread and butter and like bench, you know what I mean? So,
I did the same.
um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, enough to get by, but I mean, it's definitely not ideal. So pretty much the plan was to do nationals and then we were sort of just like everything was seemed like really, it was going well. And then honestly, I'm a type of guy, some people, don't like to think about their competition and don't really worry about that. But for me, I'm a guy that I'm not going to lie, I'm going to find a show where I might be stronger in. So when I started looking at USAs for this year, I didn't really see anyone that was like a big challenger. So that was what we ended up starting to look at was, okay, maybe we should do USAs because there was a kid, he's really good, Chris Waite.
Oh, I
Um,
know Chris Wade.
he's sort of,
Never
he
really
always is
gets in
supposed to,
shape. Never really
yeah,
gets in shape, but crazy
the
structure.
potential. Yeah, crazy
Yeah.
structure, but I've never seen him in shape. So I was sort of betting on like, you know what I mean? He probably won't hit his mark and I can sort of come in field and edge him out. And then I didn't really see anyone else that was like on the radar. So we started prepping for USAs in the hopes that I'm not gonna lie, like I'm gonna get if someone shows up with a better structure, like for nationals or someone just is much bigger than me, because I'm also not like a huge super. So I try to play to my strengths and advantages. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that's why I chose USA's. But and with USA's getting canceled, then here we found North Americans, and we were sort of already in a groove. And then, of course, that was Nick Walker's show that he picked out a year ago. So that's sort of like the whole idea of, oh, I'll pick a show where there's not like anyone crazy. And then I end up falling in the Nick Walker show. At
Yeah,
that point, I was
that's
like, I'm not going to back out. You know what I mean? And like, at least see where we stand. And I was under the impression that like, obviously Nick proved himself worthy and like is ridiculous. Like just standing there backstage with him is like, what the hell? But like, sometimes like the previous year, I felt like he was not quite as good as he was presented on Instagram. You get what I'm saying?
oh
Like for
really?
USA's.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You were
Yeah.
there?
But no, just from like pictures and stuff like that.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But I think he did this year made dramatic improvements in his shape and his waist and
He
really put in
looked
the work. And it
insane.
was a different bodybuilder than last year at USA's. But I was also under the impression, like sort of strategic wise, like, okay, yeah, he looks insane on Instagram, but maybe he won't be quite as polished on stage like USA's 2019, where Zach ended up beating him, Merkel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
obviously, he proved himself worthy, and that was not the case because he put in the work. He put on more muscle, and his shape actually improved, I think, because he was so conscious of his waist. You could tell he really put in the work on his waist because even on his front double bicep, his waist was super flat. Um, he really, I think, put in the work that he had to put in, and that was his day. So yeah, we ended up pretty much pushing on the North Americans, and that's sort of because of USA's. We already started the prep. That was sort of rolling. So that's sort of how we ended up doing that show.
Yeah, USAs are usually early August, and this was early September, so it's a month difference. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
usually
that
like a
huge.
5 or 6 week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not that huge. So, that's manageable in a
yeah.
prep. Especially, how far out were you? Like 8, 10, 12 weeks
It
out?
was like actually 12 weeks out, probably.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's okay then.
yeah.
Yeah,
They canceled it pretty early. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, how was the prep though? Because I mean, if you guys are following Nate, he always posts. He's not one of those guys that hides going into
Yeah.
the show. and you always like to post updates, but you never, I don't think I ever see you like going through the whole of what's going on during your prep. So
Yeah.
was it, I know we had some conversations, but I obviously want you to say things on air. How was this prep compared to the last one? Was it better? Was it worse? Did you eat more food? How was the training? Like, just talk about your prep a little bit.
Yeah, this one was like a little weird because obviously, like I said, we started out, the beginning of prep was like the whole COVID situation, so gyms weren't quite open, but I wasn't really in like the heart of prep, so it really wasn't too bad. And then we ended up actually moving. We're still in the same state in the United States, but we ended up moving probably 2 hours away. So I ended up getting a new job, which was a big struggle. So for those that don't know, you know, but I'm a restaurant general
Yeah,
manager.
well, let's talk
Yeah.
about that for a second.
Okay.
So, yeah, you're a general manager in a restaurant. You'll tell us what that entails, but from my perspective, I'm kind of a manager because it's a family business. It's owned by my dad. So
Yeah.
when you have a factory that's a family business, usually the children don't have to do much. They're just, walk around the factory, check things out, and walk away and have, lunch. In a
Yeah.
restaurant, you have to fucking work.
Right.
And anywhere from, doesn't matter. I might work 2 hours a day, but it's gonna be the busiest 2 hours in the
Yeah.
world, or it's gonna be 14 hours. There's no in between. So and it entails everything, from
Oh yeah.
gardening all the way to, I don't know, like polishing shoes. Doesn't matter. You have to do. So from your perspective, what's your usual day at work looks like?
Well, usually, so I work usually 5 shifts a week, 10 hours to sometimes 12 hours, depends on the day.
Jesus.
But so I'm on a salary. So you're pretty much your minimum is 50 hours a week is what most restaurants require, which can be a lot, obviously, when you're trying to do 2 sessions of cardio a day and weight train. So it can obviously be a little hard, and you're on your feet all day. I mean, running around. So the biggest thing though is hard is I think in the restaurant management business, I've always ran into this is you know when people don't show up for work or are late or aren't great workers, you're the last line of defense as a restaurant manager. So, like
You
for
step in,
example, I
yeah.
think so I was like 4 or 5 days out, like right before the show, and I had to close work uh, 11 a.m. to 10 at night with no dishwasher. So I'm washing dishes the whole night and trying to manage the restaurant. With like, and you're like, 4 or 5 days out, already feeling like dog shit. So it's like one of those things where you're like, man, especially when you have the prep like emotions and brain going on, you're like, man, this sucks. Like, it's hard to
Yeah,
stay
yeah,
positive, I
it's tough.
guess.
I know exactly how it feels.
Yeah, so that's probably the hardest part is the fluctuation of employees. Because when you're really fully staffed, it's not horrible because I can it's not a hard job. It's more just managing everyone. But when you're short and you have
Do
to
you have
sort of
to do
manage
you have
people
to
and
stand do you have to stand around a lot? Do you like greet guests? Like, where do you have your own office? Like, what type of an
yeah,
establishment
so
is it?
I would call I'm usually wherever the problem area is. So I'm wherever I feel like I'm needed. So if the line is slow, I'll be over there helping them. If the register person is sort of slow or down a person, I'll be up there. But usually the main focus is usually up front with the guests, just to make sure the guest interaction is quality and up to proper service. Um, so you're pretty much just all over the place, I guess. You know what I mean? I'm not usually in an office for the most part. Usually just sort of helping out everyone else and sort of making sure everything is flowing properly.
But do you have at any moment, do you have like time to maybe chill? Like, you know what I mean? Like moments where it's a little bit slower, and then you're like, all right, I'm
Yeah,
gonna, I'm gonna sit down for a second, maybe go through some numbers or act like I'm counting,
yeah,
cash
yeah. I
or
can
whatever.
sometimes get away like during like a slow period usually. in the afternoon before lunch, before dinner, like after lunch and stuff like that, and just sort of chill out for a little bit, where it slows down. So it's not always like go, 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 go.
Yeah.
So I'll come in and, set up shop and get everything open. And then I'll sort of be slow for a little bit. And then we'll have lunch, we'll be really busy, slows down a little bit again, and then dinner. And then it's sort of like, it's pretty busy till the end of the night just because closing down stuff and all that is, you want to make sure everything's up to speed. And obviously you want to get out of there on time, especially when you're prepping for a show and you're bodybuilding, your time is money.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
So, and most people are gonna be asking, like, for me and you, that's probably not really a problem, but what about the food? Like, the food is probably amazing. So, how do you deal with
Oh
that?
yeah. I get that, yeah, a lot, is because it's funny because I have clients too, and they're always like, I work with a lot of females too that are in like nursing, and they're always complaining like everyone's bringing candies and snacks because I guess a lot of nurses, they always bring in food, like, and everyone shares food and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, you have no idea. Like, I'm around so right now the place I work at is actually, it's all like luxury mac and cheese, so it's all by scratch and stuff like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So
I
it's like
know.
they got like all these crazy different macaroni and cheeses and stuff like that. So it's like looks crazy good.
Dude, we
Um,
bake our own cakes. We make everything ourselves. We bake our own bread. Like when I come in the morning, like the first thing that I smell is like that. You know when they open the
oh yeah,
oven and
yeah,
you have that flush of hot
yeah.
air and it's all bread.
Oh
I
man,
almost collapse. You know,
yeah,
it's game over. You know, so
yeah. But I
that's
guess for like us, I mean, I think it's just we just been doing it for so long. I think it was definitely hard in the beginning when I first like started bodybuilding. You know what I mean? I mean, I didn't never not eat off plan and prep, but like definitely in the off season, I would be more like apt to like eat something at the restaurant where I'm like, oh, whatever. Whereas now I'm very dedicated and like I wouldn't do that like even in
yeah.
the off season, like year round. I'm just sort of like in that place where you know what I mean. Everything is structured year round.
What
Um,
about food? Do they cook your food? Do you have to cook it yourself? Do you bring it in? Like what's that situation like?
yeah, so I just bring in all my own meals, and it's sort of luckily most people are very respectful and they respect the fact that I have like a goal and stuff like that. And it's sometimes it's hard to tell people about bodybuilding because no one ever gets it, even if you try to explain it to them like a thousand different ways. But for the most part, like everyone that I've ever worked for is usually very, supportive and uh, sort of like helping, and as far as like, you know what I mean, being okay with what I do, as long as you're not abusing it. I think, you know what I mean? So like they'll let me eat my meals and stuff like that as long as I'm not like sitting back there for half an hour, like every 3 hours, it's like so the
Yeah.
off season gets hard because you got to like try to eat quick. And obviously that's always hard when you're like at 6,000 calories and meals are,
Are
going
you
down
like,
very slow.
that good old like and then
Yeah. Yeah.
you run back? Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, prep's not bad because you're so fucking hungry that you can eat a meal in like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
So
I
like
know.
once your appetite's going, it's like it's pretty easy because it's not like time consuming. It's really the off season that's the hardest because like meals just go down so slow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, it's the worst. I know. I know. It usually takes.
And you don't want to be that asshole that's like, sorry guys, I'm gonna sit back here for half an hour and eat this chicken and rice.
Yeah, but we're not. We don't have like a huge staff, so it's like I go eat and then I tell the waitress like, all right, you can go, like
Yeah.
after me. But
I mean, there's definitely
I'm the
sometimes during
priority.
the day. Yeah. There's definitely sometimes during the day it's hard because you're trying to eat at a certain time and you might get a crazy rush out of nowhere. You might have to put that meal off for, another hour, which sucks, you know what I mean? But it's just sort of the way it is because obviously you got to manage, you know what I mean, work and bodybuilding around each other. So
I mean, as long as you get that meal down, as long as you don't
yeah,
replace it for something else, I think that's
right, right.
an hour here or there. I don't think that's a
Yeah,
problem. As long as it's not like 5 or 6 hours between meals, I don't think.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So moving away from that, yeah, I just want to let people know what you do and how hard it is. Harder than most people can imagine, actually.
Yeah, it's definitely
Moving
hard.
away from that, which makes prep hard as it is, I know you had some sleeping issues as well.
Oh
Were you
yeah.
able to fix that, or what was that about?
Yeah, so I'm not really sure. I think it might have been just like I tried to back off on my caffeine too, because I do get a little heavy on using caffeine just to sort of get me through the days. But yeah, previous years I've never really had too much issues with like sleep and stuff like that with prep, but this one was a little bit harder because it even hit me later than normal. So like I would say even like 6 weeks out, I started I would be up like sort of just frequently throughout the night and not really be able to go back to sleep. And, then I would be up at like 4 in the morning. And when I obviously would, that's not like sort of my schedule. So that was really hard because it was just obviously sleep is key. And obviously, especially with prep, it's like, and you work with people and usually people that aren't like sleeping well, your results aren't going to follow.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that's a big thing. So I ended up actually using a product that worked pretty well. I don't know if you ever heard of Ben, the Morphogen guy,
I heard it.
but he does like Morphogen supplements. He does a lot of health supplements. He's sort of not really a big company, but all of this stuff is like very high quality. It reminds me sort of like True Nutrition as far as like the quality of the product and sort of like the not really advertising a lot, but
Yeah, without the branding, so
yeah.
yeah,
Um, so he has a couple. He has a supplement, a sleep supplement that sort of helped. But I still had some problems. I mean, the biggest issue too for me is like, for some reason, especially as I get leaner, I tend to go to the bathroom a lot, like in the middle of the night, like peeing. So like every hour, you know what I mean? I get up and pee, and like even if I taper my water, it still seems to not really too much. So I would be up, you know what I mean? And then it'd be hard to fall back asleep, I guess. You know what I
yeah, I
mean?
know. I know. I kind of deal with the same stuff sometimes, so I know it's tough. It's tough, especially if it's a prep where you need that sleep and you're on your feet
Oh
all
yeah,
day and you have to smile to, to your
yeah.
customers, and yeah, it's tough. Yeah, but glad you
It did
glad
get
you were
better. It
able.
did get better towards the end. Yeah,
Yeah, that's good. That's good. It helps.
yeah,
So another thing where um like a lot of people, even leading up into the show, were talking about your legs being a little bit, compared to your upper body, your legs are a little bit behind. Like as a standalone
yeah,
body part, your legs are pretty damn good. Like especially from the side,
yeah.
you have a good side leg. But from the front and the back, the sweep is missing a little. Do you think that that's because you're on your feet the whole day, or is it a training issue, or is it just purely genetic?
I think it's maybe genetic, but I also think maybe I might be like training with too much volume. Maybe that's something I'm going to look at this off season is maybe sort of see if I can get more out of less volume. I've always been sort of a very high volume guy. It's hard for me
Mm,
mentally to like uh not like do every exercise almost like not like quite to that extent, but it's almost like, oh, I got to do extensions, I got to do hack squat, I got to do leg press, I got to do lunges, and then I got to do hamstring stuff. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
whereas like a lot of guys I see that seem to be making good progress and are sort of preaching that sort of like low volume are doing like 3 exercises for legs.
well,
So that might
well,
be something to
Matt,
think
yeah,
about.
well, Matt said that Nick blew up when they switched, from training 6 times a week to 4 times a week, and when he reduced his total volume and just focused on one like main working set. So
Yeah.
maybe that's the key. Who knows?
Yeah, I heard that in the interview. He was like, "Yeah, we just kept on bringing down the volume, and then it would work, and then we brought down the volume even more." Like
Yeah, yeah,
he's like,
yeah.
just kept on. Yeah, I was like, "Oh shit." So
That, and he gave some pretty good insights into building the sweep. So
yeah,
might help. Who
yeah, no,
knows?
definitely, definitely.
Yeah, it's
Um,
something that I've learned in bodybuilding over the years, and I've been doing it for 10 years. Is everything is worth a try for at least
oh
three
yeah,
weeks. Everything,
oh definitely, yeah.
unless
Well, I think
something
that's
stupid like drug wise, but everything else.
yeah, yeah. I've never been like married to a certain idea too. Like for some people ask like, oh, well, how do you train? Well, I do a little bit of everything, honestly. So I think that's worked pretty well for me too. So like I might do like a 6 day a week training, but I've also done 4 day a week training where it's like one body part a week. And then I've also done like two body parts a week. You know what I mean? So I'm not really married to any idea. So I think some people are very um, like they can't get out of like a certain sort of way
Yeah, I
that they
know.
train, and that's the only way they believe. Like some, especially some of the pros, you're like, man, if you tried training like this, maybe you might get like you progress more because I think a lot of people they get great progression and they get to a certain point, and then they don't really realize that they're not really progressing anymore, but they stay there because like they got there with that training philosophy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like a lot of people are probably beating themselves up like that, or they
Yeah,
aren't beating themselves up enough, so there's a lot to learn from almost anyone. And it's a
yeah,
shame that people are like, look at James Hollingshead, like he
yeah,
exploded,
yeah,
and his training didn't change like a ton. It's just subtle
yeah.
changes, like rest
Right.
pauses, going by feel, things like that, cutting down on the volume, bringing it up a little
Yeah,
bit, frequency, stuff like that. And he blew up like it's his first cycle. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, it's just the willingness to learn, and fucking Hani Ramba talks about it a lot, like being coachable. Like a lot of
yeah, yeah.
people just aren't coachable. Like you
Right.
tell
And
them an
that's why I
idea.
remember
Yeah.
that's why Dante stopped working with people. I don't know if you remember Dante Trudell used to work with people, and then he's like he doesn't want to work with like really good pros just because they're so set in their ways. You know what I mean? And they're not gonna like
Yeah.
listen.
I didn't
Yeah,
know that. I didn't know that's the reason. So
yeah,
that's the reason why he stopped
yeah,
coaching people. Yeah, that's why
yeah. He
Dusty
was
had to back him.
well. That's why he got. That's why Dusty started working with him because I think Dusty wasn't really anyone really at that point. And Dusty was pretty much telling him like, "I'll do anything, like whatever you tell me," because I think Dante was sort of complaining about the fact that he would get these people and then they would still not really listen to them or buy into the. I think if you hire a coach, especially or training, you have to give up totally 100%, like whatever your belief is. You know what I mean? Or it's sort of a waste of time. I think it's hard for everyone to sort of, especially when you're established or a pretty decent pro or a very good amateur. It's hard to sort of just like let go of your own ideas. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
not
I
have the
know.
wheel.
I know, and that's why a guy like Nick Walker is improving like crazy.
Oh yeah,
And that's why
he's
he didn't do
coachable,
that. And that's why
right?
he didn't do that well at one point, because he's coachable. He listened to the wrong advice at one point, and he was
Yeah, yeah.
underfed and pushed
Kept
down
making
into,
light heavyweight
yeah, and shit like that
or
where he
whatever.
was supposed to
Yeah,
grow.
yeah,
So, it goes both ways, but if you hit the right coach, it can work pretty well. And I think you
yeah,
did. You're working really well with Andrew. How long are you
yeah.
working with him for?
So I think this is actually our 11th show, so about like 5 or 6 years.
Damn.
So pretty much I started with him. So I mean, we made very good progress every year. It's just not really like Nick Walker progress, but it's still very good progress every year. Like 5 pounds here, five
That's
pounds
crazy.
there, and just sort of slowly climbing up the ranks. So
That's great because it's all quality. Like your physique is
yeah,
still nearly the same, just bigger and better.
yeah,
I noticed that your pecs are a little fuller this year. Like your upper pec is a lot rounder. Little subtle things like that where you can see the changes, and in
yeah,
comparison it shines. So that leads us over to the North Americans, where you placed third. Leading up to it, we had a little bit of a scuffle, by the way, at one point, because I told you to work on your posing and you got a little bit mad, thinking that I don't like you, which is not true. I'm a huge fanboy since like
yeah. We moved
10
past
years
that.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, and you said that I don't really believe that you can win, which was not true. I did believe that you can win. You just went against probably two of the best super heavyweights, maybe even in the world.
Yeah.
Like Nick Walker, he, like, if you listen to Fuad and James and Ben, like they rank him up high, like top five at pro shows. So he's that
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
already, and he was still an amateur 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And Bundy, I don't know his exact name. His name is
Yeah. It's
crazy.
hard to pronounce.
Yeah, he's just genetic. He's like the
Oh
next
yeah.
coming of Lionel Bayeki. I don't know how else
Yeah.
to name it. So those two guys, it was tough. I thought that
Oh
you
yeah.
would edge out Bundy. I thought that you would be second. So I was a little bit surprised how well he compares and how tall he is. I didn't expect that and how
Yeah.
big he
Yeah.
is.
I didn't know his structure and his height is very powering. I
Yeah,
didn't realize how
in
tall he was either. Yeah.
pictures he looks a lot smaller.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, but you showed up, and my first impression when I saw you was that the tan was a little bit light, a little bit gray.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that I noticed is that you were in your own condition. It was like lights out as usual, but the waist was not as good as it was a year ago at the
Yeah.
Nationals. So was there a
Yeah. I agree.
problem, or what was going on?
Yeah. So to be honest, like it's sort of my own laziness. So honestly, so I was really into like doing the vacuums and stuff like that for nationals and just really like on it. And then I just sort of honestly, coming into this show, I was just sort of like not as focused on, doing the vacuums and sort of keeping the waist tight. It was really just me being lazy. And I can definitely look back on it now and say like that was sort of dumb. You know what I mean? I guess I was like not really as worried about it because I thought I sort of was like, oh, I have this
You
down.
got it. You
But
got it.
but honestly, like for anyone else there listening, that's like hopefully learning from this is like what my experience and my takeaway was. Like even if you can like say perform a vacuum and be very good at it, like if you don't keep practicing it and stay on top of it, then you'll sort of like lose that ability to like really be good at it. It's one of those things like that you have to continue to practice. It's not just like, oh, I just have it and now it's not
Now
going to
it's
go
there.
anywhere.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just
So looking back, I mean, that was definitely one of the biggest things. Myself, I also noticed that too. So, and so
Do you
that's
think
sort of,
that it was a little bit of a loading issue as well? Because the day or two before, I saw your front double, and your waist was a little slimmer. So I don't know if maybe it was like a loading issue as well, or you don't think there's anything wrong with that.
no, I mean, that definitely could be it. So, I mean, essentially what happened this year was I was very happy with how everything we did, except for obviously the waist being like not quite as sucked in, but we loaded actually a lot harder than we normally have. So in the past, like for nationals and North Americans, and usually most shows, we usually really only load on like maybe very minimal carbs, like 300 grams of carbs, maybe like, 50 to 70 grams of carbs each meal, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday we
That's low.
keep pretty sucked in. So that sort of helps keep our waist super tight. But the feedback we had from nationals, from like the judges was sort of like, we got to come in fuller, and sort of, so we this was sort of like an experiment a little bit. We wanted to come in and sort of push the food a lot harder and sort of see what we could do. So there was some risk there. I think I came in a lot fuller. My legs looked a lot fuller, and stuff like that. So, but obviously, like the takeaway was like the waist was a little bit more distended.
Yeah. So
So that could have hurt too. You know what
because
I mean?
from the back and the side, you were like mind blowing, you like full, and you could see a lot more
Yeah.
density. But from the front, that first impression, but don't
Right.
get me wrong, you looked fantastic. Like it was when you turned around, honestly, from the back, I I nearly had you winning because you were
Yeah.
second for sure. Nick is
Yeah.
just a freak. He just has the
Yeah.
legs and the arms of a it's
Yeah.
it's insane. So, but
Yeah.
still, you were a lot more balanced and you had a better back. So it kind of, the
Yeah.
pose itself kind of looked better. So it was definitely an improvement from last year. It's just about nailing
Right.
the balance, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess the takeaway is really, okay, how can we have the nationals sort of waist and the line and also have the fullness of this show? You know what I mean? So it's really, that's like bodybuilding though, right? It's sort of like,
Yeah,
okay, like how many pros, you know what I mean, are like, oh, I should have came in fuller, or I should have came in tighter, or you know what I mean? So it's always like,
everyone.
yeah, it's always coming back to, I was really happy. Like, I think honestly, I like this look better than nationals, but if I could have taken the nationals, you know, my vacuum and sort of like had it for this show, I think it would have been really awesome. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah,
it's one of those things where now we use that information, you know what I mean, and sort of apply it. So we'll probably still load a little harder than nationals, but maybe give us more time to digest and stuff like that, and sort of, and obviously stay on the vacuums and things of that nature. It was hard this year because I just felt like I didn't really have a lot of time on my hands. So, I mean, it's not an excuse because, I mean, vacuums don't take that much time, but there was a lot of mornings where I'm just running around. You know, I finish cardio, I'm jumping in the shower, and then I'm going
yeah. I
right to
get what
work.
you mean.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's sort of like once you get behind the eight ball on something, you're sort of, it's hard to get back in the rhythm of it, you know?
So was it
But
hard to
yeah, I mean,
so, yeah, yeah.
I was just going to say, like, that's a take home for some other people that are listening is, you know, posing and, you know, presentation, like keeping the waist tight, stuff like that is all like crucial stuff that a lot of people sort of can get lazy on, like myself. So,
Hey, I told you. I told you
yeah,
4 or 5 weeks ago. No, I'm kidding. It's just it's
I know.
you can control, as an amateur, you can have only so much control with all the rest of the shit that you got to do. So
Yeah,
I know with myself as well, my last show, I also didn't spend much time practicing my posing, and it showed and really bothered me because I always took a little bit of
yeah,
pride in my posing. So it's just
right.
when you have to do like the cardio, the diet, and the weights,
Yeah.
posing seems to, suffer.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
to the guys, if you have to stay up an hour late to do your
Right.
posing, do it. It
Yeah.
makes a difference. So was it hard to compete this year? Like, I mean, you were in a tent. You couldn't have your coach there, your your wife. Like, whoa,
Yeah.
what was that like?
Yeah. It was definitely different, but I mean, honestly, it was ran pretty smooth because we were at it was a long day of waiting, but we were at least in the hotel, like only a mile away. And they give us text alerts to say, you know, when to show up. And at
That's
this point,
awesome.
I had a friend that did the Masters 40, and he already went through it by the time I was waiting. So I had an idea of like, okay, I don't have to show up right when they say that. I have some like leeway time because he showed up like when he got the text alert and he was sitting there for 2 hours, you know what I mean, in the tent. So I got an idea of like, okay, like they're going to text and say super heavyweights show up to the tent. And I'm going to be like, well, I can still give it a little bit. And luckily we had the live stream. So we're still watching,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
where they're at
yeah.
on the live stream. So at least like, so I've been to some shows where you're sitting backstage for, you know, 4 or 5 hours and it makes it really long. So luckily yeah, it sucks. So luckily we were pretty much just posted up in my hotel room and I really didn't have to wait a lot when I got down there. And they moved it pretty quick, which is a little disappointing because
Yeah,
I think
they
they just
did. I
want
noticed.
the
It
problem
was
with
like it was like third
yeah, the
place
problem with
Ned
this
Spear,
show.
third place, second place Bundy, first place Nick Walker, overall
Yeah.
winner Nick Walker. Show done.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem with this show, it's 4 days. So I think a lot of them, by the time they get to the bodybuilding supers, it's last. So they just want to like get it over with, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate because it's the most exciting category, you know. But yeah, so they didn't even do comparisons. It was really weird. They literally had us do the free pose, you know, 40 seconds or 45 seconds, and then they did the call outs, and then they did their placings, and that was it, you know. So I didn't even hit a quarter turn. which is
Yeah,
weird. Like, you know what I mean? No side relax, no front, no back relax.
maybe
So
it's
yeah, it was a little
best.
strange.
Yeah, maybe it's best to avoid shows like that. Like nothing
Yeah,
against the whole, you know, organization and the
yeah,
promoter and the whole, like, it's an amazing show. It's well run, but I think it's a little bit disrespectful, just a little bit disrespectful towards the athletes. Like when
yeah,
you just shuffle them off, like literally, like you're on a, I don't know, like in a meat factory.
yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I also I wanted to ask you that, and you answered it yourself. You know, I thought it was a little weird, but yeah. So, are you disappointed today at all? What's
Uh,
your feeling? Because you were a little bit after nationals. So, what? How do you feel now?
yeah, I'm a little disappointed, I guess. Not in the fact that I think Bundy and Nick Walker rightfully won, even if I sort of came a little bit better, which, you know what I mean? I don't, so it's not really like they definitely deserved, and they're like, even when Bundy turns pro, like he's going to be a great pro. So it's not like, and like no disrespect to like Ben and Jonas, but like Nick Walker and Bundy are like two different
Breed. Yeah,
breeds
they're
compared to
different
like
breed. Yeah.
them two. You know what I mean? So losing to them, you can't really, you know what I mean, be too
Complain.
disappointed with that. I'm more disappointed in the fact of myself, like not really practicing the vacuums and stuff like that, and really displaying like what I know I could. And
But you were
like
still
I don't
improved.
know,
So,
just yeah. I mean, honestly, it's the best I've looked, and I definitely think the improvements were noticeable as far as like the size wise. You know, like it's not anything super dramatic, but I mean, I think my legs did look a lot better and bigger than nationals. You know what I mean? So, um, like the improvements, I'm happy about. I guess I'm just more disappointed in myself of not being able to display my physique as well as I probably could have. You know what I mean?
I think at the nationals you were more like a smaller super heavy. Now you look like an actual super heavy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like this prep was like I didn't really get anyone asking me if I was sucking down to heavies, so that felt good because previous years they're like, "Are you going to be a heavyweight?" And I'm like, "Fuck you."
Yeah, it's a weird question. Yeah, it's like
So it seems like now I'm like it's pretty obvious, you know what I mean, for people that actually know that I'm actually, I guess I look like a super heavyweight now,
no, it's
which
it's
is
and it's
good.
also that you're established now as a super. You know, you place
Yeah,
second, third, and now again third. You know, so people
right.
associate you with the super heavyweight class, which is
Yeah,
why on the visual that I posted today, I've wrote the next pro in line because that's how it really is. You know, the guys that
yeah.
placed ahead of you all turn pro, so now you're the next guy in line in the supers. Um, so do you have that feeling in your head like I'm the fucking front runner, like the next show I do, it's mine? Like, do you have that feeling going into your next show? And when are you gonna compete next? I know it's early to say, but
Yeah.
you must have a plan in your head.
Um, so I guess I feel like whatever next show I do, it's definitely the possibility is very high. It sort of depends. I think there's a lot of good guys still on the scene, and it's sort of like they hit their mark that they might be tough to beat. But I think I guess I never really like sleep on anyone. So like I've seen this kid, and it's all if he gets into shape though. But you know that kid like Raging Silverback, Chris Hester.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah, I mean he's a super who's really good, but I mean he's still young and hasn't really been in shape or anything like that. So it's one of those things where there's a couple guys that are coming up or moving up to supers where you're like, oh, that guy could be a problem. Even like that kid, you follow Ben Pollock at all, the deadlift guy,
No, I don't. But
PH
I.
deadlift, Justin Harris's client.
Oh, right, the
He
big
talks about
guy.
him on
The
Fwads.
big guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
he's pretty big and can
But he
he
doesn't
he might
have.
be a problem too.
But he doesn't have
Yeah,
a bodybuilder's physique. I think
yeah, yeah,
I found out your main problem. you're worrying about other people too much.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
stop,
I do that.
delete your Instagram,
Yeah.
do whatever you need to do. Like you're Nate Spear, they should be worried about
Yeah.
you, not the other
Yeah.
way around. Like you are the guy, not them. They should,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's,
Yeah.
you have to change that in your head.
Yeah.
You
I
are,
mean, I'll feel better too, like in a couple of days. Honestly, my confidence is like a little low. Not just like I know I'm good, but it's just sort of one of those things where you're like, oh shit, like I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, yeah, I know how good Bundy and Nick Walker are, but it's like, I don't know, third place is like still like compared to what I did last year. I don't know. Like I know I looked good, but it was almost like shit. Like
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
I think it's still amazing. You're still top three. You still got a medal. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you deserved it, and you should be happy, dude. You should be happy.
Yeah.
Like I
But yeah, I
like
think,
it.
well, I mean,
Like you looked
uh,
competitive next to them. It's not like they blew you
yeah.
away. Like from the side and the back, like
Yeah.
from the front, because of the quads and the structures and
Yeah.
Nick's arms, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
From the back, I think you had Bundy for sure from the back,
Yeah.
and with Nick it was close. So that's already
Yeah.
like you should be happy at least about that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I
So
definitely felt like I looked like better than I thought I would next to Nick. So that's good.
exactly. You
Obviously, he's
compare
a
very well.
different breed.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, as far as like what's next, I mean, we're thinking about nationals. It's really about work. Like like we were talking about earlier, it's not really some of these guys can sort of, you know what I mean, do what they want. Unfortunately, it's hard for me to just sort of take two different times off in the year for competition. It's one of those things I got to sort of feel out with my bosses and stuff like that and sort of see
Yeah, I know.
where they're at, if they're okay with me doing that. So it's definitely a possibility. I mean, it's not really hard for me to like keep going on, especially I think we did it last year pretty successfully. So it's one of those things where I will just probably improve because we're pretty smart as far as like keeping everything in check. And like once you're in shape, you know what I mean, we'll probably stay in pretty good shape, but just sort of eat up and it'll be more comfortable.
Hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
So
Yeah, I
it'll
get what you're
really be
saying.
that
You're
bad.
just gonna up the dose and
Yeah, exactly. It's the only way to go.
yeah. No, I'm kidding, but I get where you're coming from. So hey, I hope to see you again on stage this year. If not, just take another year off, improve where you
Yeah.
can, and just be even more competitive next year. And maybe in a more normal situation, not
Yeah.
competing in a tent and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now that we covered all of that, I think it's fair to um, we can't avoid the elephant in the room, and the elephant is the Tampa New York Pro. I haven't even thought of that before bringing you on, but if people don't know, you cover show for Maximum Muscle Report. You actually know what you're looking at. You know how to like assess and review shows. So I think it's perfect for us to do like a short review of the New York Pro. Did you watch anything? Were you able to keep track at
Yeah,
all?
we actually it was pretty cool actually. After the show, we had enough time to go back up into the room and watch. So that's what we did. Instead of going out to eat, we watched the New York Pro and got like
Fuck.
food delivered to the room and
Well,
shit
you
like
you
that. So
love you love bodybuilding. Nobody can take that away
yeah,
from you. You love
yeah,
bodybuilding because most
yeah. So
people
that was
would
pretty
just be
cool.
like, you know.
Yeah,
So, what do you think of the overall quality of the lineup and how the show looked? Because, in my opinion, Tampa Pro was probably the worst pro show I've seen in a long
yeah.
time. Nothing
Well, it just
against
goes to
Ian
show.
Hunter and the guys, but
Yeah.
just and this show was a lot tougher. So, what did you
Oh
think?
yeah. Well, it just goes to show, and I thought he looked really good, but like even Dwayne Walker, I think he got like what, 8th here or something like that.
Something like that, 8 or 9.
He still looked really good, but it just sort of goes to show you, you know what I mean? This lineup was a different animal. I mean, even just I was really impressed with Hassan Mustafa. He looked really great. Some of these guys, I think it might have played in their head too when they got moved around so much. Because I know me as a competitor, it was very weird how they sort of judged it. I'm not against that, but I know some guys it can sort of mentally affect them and that can sort of hurt
Fade
their look
away.
a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's like you're in the middle and then they put you on the side and you're like, oh, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
the
I
judging,
think
I
it
don't
played
know.
with,
I think Tyler was the head judge. I
yeah, he
think the
was.
call-outs were really weird. Like, it's weird to me that Patrick was sixth after prejudging, but he
Yeah.
was compared in the last call-out in the top four. That doesn't make any sense to me at
Yeah.
all. So little things like that or a 7-man first call-out. Like, I only see that at
Yeah, it
like
was way
amateur
too big.
shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seemed
So
like way too much.
like I don't
I
want
mean,
to.
I guess like for me, the person that really stood out to me was Justin Rodriguez. I mean, he obviously, his conditioning was like really good, especially for him. I mean, he's sort of a dark horse, but I've followed him for a lot of years because he's actually from New York and he did a local show in our area a while back and was just a nobody and showed up and just demolished everyone. So I just sort of always watched him. And he's the guy that like you watched and like 2 weeks out, you're like, man, this guy's fat. Like he's never going to be in shape.
Yeah, yeah, and
And then
then
he just shows up sometimes. And I think him getting with AJ Sims, he really found the formula with him, I think, too. You know what I mean?
yeah, this is
Because
his second year
he's
in a
always sort
row,
of
and he's
struggled.
nailing it. Yeah,
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 yeah. But he has I think it's obviously his quads are sort of going to hurt him a little bit. They're not a
deep.
crazy sweep, and he's so broad up top. But he was really polished. You know what I mean? Like his skin was really tight. He had that nice color. Just everything sort of flowed. He has that really like pleasing. It looks like maybe he could have been a little bigger because sometimes it's funny because his arms looked a little small, but they're actually a big body part on him usually.
Yeah,
Like he has that crazy peak, so they looked a little flat. You know what I mean? So maybe he could have been a touch fuller, and I think that could have sealed the deal for him. But that's really getting like picky. But I think he was really, really on the money.
yeah, I think so too. And it's funny, you said the show being a different animal. You have like Quinton in 8, and he was no worse than
Yeah,
last year when he was placing top 5, top 6.
right,
So, Phil Klahar placed fourth in Tampa. I think he was like 10
right.
here. So
Yeah.
it was crazy. And I wanted to start from and Antoine as well. He was 7th here, which
Oh
was
yeah.
great to see. It's just that I think he was way too flat.
Yeah,
Way too
yeah. You
flat.
could
He was
tell.
like
Yeah,
10 pounds too flat, like over
yeah,
dieted. He just looked
definitely.
spent. So
Yeah,
that's a shame because I think if he was like big and full, he would have
right.
been fighting for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. His conditioning was immaculate, but it's like you said. It seemed like, especially if you were following along, it was like almost like he got in shape so quick that like maybe that might have hurt him a little bit. You know what I mean? It was like in 2 weeks he was like in shape, and I was like, what the fuck?
No, but I
So maybe
was
that might have been.
that too, but I was looking at him at the beginning of this or in the middle of this prep as opposed to earlier in the year when he started prepping for the spring shows.
Oh yeah,
And he looked a lot fresher, a lot bigger, and a lot fuller. So I think
yeah,
he forced it way too much going into this. I think he just wanted to compete
yeah.
out of spite.
Right. Yeah, probably trying to make up some ground too for the arm thing. You know what I mean? Probably just on the
Yeah,
gas the whole time. You know what I mean? To try to
yeah.
make up lost ground. You know.
And it's not
Um,
always, no, he's very dedicated, but you just can't.
yeah.
We're still human.
Yeah. I guess too, like John De La Rosa, he's my boy too. Honestly, we talk sometimes, and it sucks, but man, I just was hoping he would be a little bit sharper. You know what I mean? I was hoping this was his show. He's a good guy,
Yeah,
but he sort of is a little inconsistent sometimes. I mean, he looked really good, but I know he could be better. You know what I mean? It was
so I
almost like
listen.
I
So
think
I
last year
listened
he did
to.
really good.
So I listened to Milos and Ron Harris wrap up
Yep.
on MD. And I don't know if I mean, they were there, but I don't kind of
Yeah.
agree with John, because Miller said that John looked like he was 8 to 10 weeks out. I don't know, man. He had like deep striations in his lower
Yeah.
back,
I
and
wouldn't go that far, but
I think he was either a little bit flat, or he held a
yeah.
lot of water, somewhere in between,
Yeah.
where, but 10 weeks out, not really. That's the first
Yeah.
thing. Second thing, I'm gonna start from Patrick, because he was sixth.
Yeah.
Patrick, he has the hype train, and it
Yeah.
just got derailed big time, because he was on point here. There's no excuse. He was full
Yeah.
hard, big, everything in between, but he just
Yeah.
lacked muscle compared to the top five,
Yeah.
and it's just apparent. And his posing is too much of a, he still poses a little bit stiff, like a boxer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 I mean, he showed up like really, I think at 100%. So there's not really much he could do, but he just needs that time, to put on muscle. I mean, it just at that level, you know what I mean? It's like one of those things, you showed up at your best, but it's like at that point, you just got to go back to the drawing board. It's not quite enough. You know what I mean? You did everything you could. So, I mean, he needs everyone's already saying it. So, I mean, I'm sure he's sick of it, but just needs a little
Yeah.
time off. You know what I mean?
He's been prepping since early 2019. Like,
Yeah.
have an off season, man.
Right.
It's too
Yeah.
much. Like
Yeah.
235 at 5'10", 240, whatever he is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not. It's not
Yeah.
gonna cut it. So,
Right.
and then the next guy is Max Charles, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
controversy around that
Yeah.
placing. Like, Miller, she's going crazy all over
Yeah. I saw
the
some
sides.
pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, and posting pictures, close-ups, and stuff, which is great. I think the problem with Max is even though he's crazy conditioned, he still looks like he has thick skin on the back, and the quads especially. Like, they don't have the crisp separation, you know,
Yeah.
and the whole disbalance between his upper body from the front and from the back is just too much. But I still would have had him top three here, because he was
Yeah.
just crazy. The freak factor was off the charts.
Yeah. He's very sharp. I think one thing that I notice is he doesn't really have a crazy flow, like say like John or Ian structurally too. You know what I mean? It's sort of up and down a little bit.
Yeah.
His conditioning was really good, obviously, especially in that lineup when you're looking at other guys. But the thing I notice is like you look at Ian and John, just their front double and their front lat spread, you know what I mean? Their taper and their width, they pop a little bit more. Whereas Max, I felt like it was a little more narrow.
And from
I
the
think that
back,
sort of hurts him too.
it's just
Yeah.
not there. He's a little
Yeah.
shallow. Hamstrings don't have that detail either.
Right.
Yeah, but still, he was still impressive. So, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I would like to have seen him top three, but I don't have a problem with him being fifth because of those issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next in line, who I thought would be winning when he walked out, was Hassan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kid is
He's
fucking
nuts.
insane. I
Yeah.
think he's 2 years older than me. And
It's crazy.
my both legs combined are probably the size of his teardrop.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, he's just a
Yeah. He's
freak.
impressive.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he posted something. I couldn't read the whole post because you just messaged me before getting on.
Yeah.
I think he had some problem leading into it. He had some issue. That's why he couldn't present himself. I don't know what it is. Was it mental or whatever?
Yeah.
But you could tell that he wasn't enjoying himself up there. So there might have been, because
Yeah.
everybody's shitting on his posing, me as well.
Yeah.
But what did you see as far as Hassan
Well,
goes?
it's funny because I was actually watching him, and I remember I think he posted an update like 2 weeks out, and he said he was doing New York. I'm like, what? No way! Like this guy's doing New York. Just like did not look in shape at all. I don't know. Like if you saw any like those update pictures,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, I did.
for him to show up like that from what I saw like leading up to the show was pretty impressive. But yeah, I think he's always sort of just been an awkward poser too. You know what I mean? Never really maybe just because he's that big, you know what I mean? It's sort of a little bit uncomfortable for him. But he always looks sort of like, I've noticed that he looks uncomfortable and just sort of awkward, almost like, you know, when someone can't dance and they're
Yeah,
like
yeah,
flat footed and
yeah,
they're, you know, it's sort of like, what are you doing? Like, but
yeah.
no, I mean, he's really impressive. I just think, like I thought he looked better last year at Tampa. I don't know if you remember that, where I
Yeah, I
thought he
do.
could have placed higher there. I think he could have been a little tighter. You know what I mean? Just a little drier.
I don't know if
But I
he
mean, he looked
looked.
really good.
I don't know if he looked better last year because he was much bigger here, like much bigger. But I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I think he last year he improved as prejudging went on. He was getting like tighter. He
yeah.
was fading here hard, and
Right.
his
Yeah.
posing was getting worse. And his trunks. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but his trunks from the back were like a tent. Like they were,
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't notice that.
covering the glutes. It was really like, to me it was distracting because everybody else is like,
Yeah.
you know, so little things like that can make a difference, because
Oh, yeah, definitely.
coming out he was
Well, it's
probably,
well if you're judging too, you know, little things like that can like sort of distract the eye. So and it can
yeah,
take away from something else that they could be looking at. You know.
yeah, and they're gonna move you way to the side to see the guys they want to see. So
Right.
I mean, I agree with his placing. I wish he would have placed higher, but it is what it
Yeah.
is.
He's definitely a guy that could have won the show. I mean, no doubt if he was a little bit more polished. You know.
Yeah, for sure. It's just polish. He can fix that in a week. So
Oh yeah, he's definitely a guy that could come into the next show and just smoke everyone.
smash it.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
So next up, John in third in supposedly off-season shape, which he wasn't. I think he rushed it a little bit because he
Yeah.
decided to do this show 6 weeks out. So maybe that's
Right.
the problem. Maybe he should have done Chicago a little later or something.
Yeah.
But I know why he wanted to do the New York Pro because it's his show.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't win it again, but he did look. I mean, he looked good to me. Just like we
Yeah.
said, there was something missing as far as condition goes. He wasn't as crisp as last year.
Yeah. I think John too he's one of those guys. He has a very finicky body, so it's like everything has to be aligned. So like he's not a guy that can sort of rush a prep. I think he's sort of like he tends to have a lot of issues sometimes with peaking, as far as like being flat or watery, or a lot of things can sort of go wrong for him in the last final days. So it's I think for him everything sort of has to be aligned perfectly for him
Yeah,
to sort of get that look that that we're all sort of looking for. He just is a guy that doesn't really get into shape very easily, I think. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
some guys, you know what I mean, can sort of do that, sort of like, okay, I'm going to diet in 8 weeks, and it doesn't really affect them. They can just go into shape. I
Kevin
think John's a
Jordan.
guy,
Kevin Jordan
yeah.
gets in shape in 6 weeks.
Where's he at?
Kevin? Oh,
He hasn't. Yeah, is he retired?
he's no, no,
No,
no. He's gonna
no, I'm
blast it
just
for
kidding.
that.
No,
No, he's
I'm just getting a hard time.
no, he just focused on himself a little bit this year,
Yeah.
and now he's back at it. He's gaining size, so he's gonna
No,
be
he's a
all right.
great bodybuilder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Oh
gonna
yeah.
compete next year, and I hope he's gonna redeem himself. But as far as John goes, he's the type of bodybuilder. He's smaller in stature, kind of like Dexter.
Yeah.
So if
Right.
he's even 95%, he has to be 100% to beat these guys because
Yeah.
they're much bigger than him. So even
Right.
if he's a little bit off, he just won't. And if he's like 10, 15% off, he just isn't in contention.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, he
Yeah, I
was
mean, I'm a
good for
big fan of
third though.
John, though. I love his look, though. I mean, he has like such a great flow, good
Yeah,
pop. He's like round. I mean,
nothing
he's really has
missing.
like the ideal look to me. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah, I
everything flows
agree.
very well together. He's
Yeah,
not. He has really great balance. But yeah, it's like you said. Even when he's like in 100%, it's still a struggle for him because he's just a shorter guy, and he can tend like guys like Juan can beat him, which is like baffling to me. But if like they're both 100%, you know what I
yeah,
mean? I don't know. I guess I'm just more of a fan of his look, so sometimes I'm a little biased, but Um, but yeah, I think he'll keep going and he'll get better. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I agree. I agree. And then in second, we have Justin, who, in my opinion, should have won. Like, nothing against Ian. He looked amazing. I like Ian. I don't have a problem with him. No, nothing, no issues. But it's just Justin was 100%, and
yeah,
Ian was 85%. And I don't
yeah,
think 85% should be rewarded, like at a level,
yeah,
like at the New York Pro level, maybe at the Chicago Pro level, but not at the New York Pro level. And Ian is not Ian is not like a grade A, like tier one bodybuilder where, kind of like Dexter, or, where they can get away with being 90% and still blow away a show because they're like a
yeah,
top five Olympian. Here with Ian, I don't think that's the case, and I calculated with the poses because I bodybuilding is judged pose for pose at pro
yeah,
level, and for me, a few shots are even. Ian wins the front lat spread and the side triceps, and everything else goes to Justin, like ab and thigh,
yeah,
most muscular, the back shots especially.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
How did you see it?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you too. I mean, Justin, I thought was really 100% and sort of was steady, like consistent through the whole show, and just sort of got better. You know what I mean? And I really like Ian. You know what I mean? And like, uh, I want to see him do really well, but I just really wasn't super impressed with like, I guess the winning fashion. I guess you'd say. I mean, I just his color seemed off again. You know what I mean? Which was an issue
Yeah,
at the last show. Obviously, it's hard because I think he did like use professionals and stuff like that. So it's not really like it's one of those things. You know what I mean? You put your trust into someone else, and it sort of doesn't really always come out the way you
yeah,
want it to.
backfires. Yeah,
Um, yeah, and like I don't know, he was sort of posing a little funky too. Like it was almost like he was trying to pose his glutes a different way too, and they're like looking
from the back.
soft. Like I don't know if you noticed that, but it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like
Kenny
he
was
would like
helping
not
him.
really.
Kenny
He
was
was like
helping him.
posing them, but then he would pose them a certain way, but then he would go back to this other way, and it was like sort of like he was trying to find a, you know what I mean? And it sort of threw me off a little bit, honestly. I guess as far as like what condition he was in, you know what I mean? Because it sort of seemed like it sort of hurt him as far as like how he was actually really in condition. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, he didn't present himself very well. Um,
The
in
the
some
problem
shots,
too
he
with
some shots he
bodybuilding,
nailed them, like side
yeah,
shots,
definitely.
the front lat, the way he changed it, it's a
Oh
lot
yeah,
better.
his front lat looks way better. He
Yeah,
looks
but the
way bigger.
back poses were not there.
Yeah, definitely structurally the way he presented himself was much better and improved because one thing that I always sort of knocked him on was his structure. He poses narrow. So when he does his front lat, he really cranks his elbows
Yeah,
forward and sort
yeah,
of like comes crunched in a little bit. So now he used to do a vacuum with his front double bicep and it almost made him look more narrow. Whereas now he seems to be opening up more. He's getting that structure fully, you know what I mean,
yeah. He
uh,
had a
flared
retarded
out.
X frame
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
show, so I understand why they would give him a win. He improved from the last show. That's supposedly a
yeah,
factor. It shouldn't be, in my opinion, but it is.
yeah,
And he was just structurally killing everyone, like in the front
yeah,
and the side shots. So that's where I. But then again, Justin was so much fuller through the pecs and the arms and the delts and the abs. Like the abs were a lot. Like Ian had the problem where he again didn't have sharp, deep abs, and his chest was
yeah,
really shallow. So in some poses he looked very deflated again, like he did the
yeah.
last time. But he did have
And
better
Justin really
quad.
had
Yeah,
like, yeah,
yeah,
Justin had like really nice skin too. I know it sounds weird, but sometimes when you watch bodybuilding, like one thing I've always noticed about Dexter is his skin is like really has like a really good look to it, and it's almost like paper thin. You know what I mean? Same with Max. I think Justin really had that too. It was almost like translucent a little bit.
yeah.
So obviously made his conditioning much better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I
so
agree. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Fuad, which made me go crazy today. Fuad said that yeah, that Ian won because his waist was tighter. Like I don't know. Like Justin to me is a very aesthetic bodybuilder. He has an
yeah,
amazing
yeah, definitely.
waistline. He has a great taper. Okay, he's a little bit wider in the waist, a little bit, where a little bit, but he still when he hits shots, it looks good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Ian has a
I
little
wouldn't
bit.
say that. I
Yeah,
don't know
go
if I
ahead.
could say that's why he won. If I was literally a judge, like I would say Ian won based off of structure and size, like you were saying. Like
Agreed.
he presented himself
And
well,
that's what James said.
and okay, and his height, you know what I mean. So all those factors, you know what I mean. Just sort of like his silhouette, you know what I mean, was really empowering. He brought a very empowering, big look that a lot of people didn't match up to, I guess. You know what I mean? So
Agreed.
if I was like looking at it through the judge's eyes, that's sort of the route I would go, is sort of why they went that way.
He looked special. Let's put it that way. He was.
Yeah.
It's either put him first or fifth type of
Yeah.
physique, and he
Yeah.
wasn't fifth. That's for sure. So I
Yeah.
I see what they did, but still Justin was. It's just to me, it's just a factor of both of them being at a certain percentage,
Yeah.
and Justin was 100% and Ian was 85, and that's where I would see
Yeah.
Justin win. But I hope he does Cali, and I'm sure he's gonna take it there. I'm pretty damn
Yeah.
sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we came to the end of this segment. Thank you for coming on. I feel that we could talk for 5 hours for sure.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
both love bodybuilding. We are very passionate about it, and it's refreshing to see. Like because most people that compete, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of people that compete don't care about bodybuilding. Did you notice that?
Yeah. It's so weird to me. Yeah. Even my girlfriend and I joke about that because she's like obsessed with bodybuilding too. Like we watch
Yeah,
YouTube videos together and stuff like
it's
that.
great.
And she's like, it's so crazy when I meet people and they're like, they don't know who like a certain person is or they don't follow like bodybuilding. Like I know, I don't get it either. Like,
Yeah,
but
that's what's happening in my country. Guys
yeah,
compete and they have no idea who was 10th at the Olympia. Okay, they know now
yeah,
because it was Patrick Moore, but the year before they had no idea that Steve Kukl was 10th. And that's
right.
crazy to me. Like,
Well, and that's
imagine,
the annoying part too, is they come in and like now they know who Patrick Moore is. Like, oh, he should have won the Olympia, but it's like they don't even know like anything else, any other variables going on.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah, like, who cares about
those
Brandon
are the
Curry and
fans.
Hadi
Yeah,
Choopan? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
Well, it's like the same thing with like
I heard
you
some
get
people
those
say
fans
that
too. Nick
Patrick,
Walker has some of those fans.
yeah, 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 yeah,
It was
but
sort
he
of
has a
funny where
lot
they're
of
like, "Oh,
haters
he's going to
too.
be on the Olympia stage." Oh yeah, definitely. But some of those fans that are just like say ridiculous stuff, you know what I mean, that hasn't even happened yet or not even close to happening. It's like
Yeah, 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 yeah,
you
yeah,
guys
yeah. I
don't even
know
know what
what
you're
you mean.
talking about.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but they don't know they
Yeah.
they take that X plus X equals Y,
Yeah.
and they don't see the other variables in between. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was just I was just happy to have you. It was a great conversation, and
Oh yeah, definitely. We go way back too. Like people I don't know. I think we've probably been chatting for at least 5 or 6 years, like off and on.
fuck,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that long, but certainly since 2016 for sure. So
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
came out on the NPC scene and in the
Yeah.
forums and stuff like that, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a long time, and we've both gradually progressed. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I said it
Definitely.
a few weeks back. We're the guys that had to fight for every pound, every
Yeah.
shred, every follower. It wasn't an easy
Oh yeah,
ride.
exactly. Yeah. And it was like I messaged you like a couple weeks ago and just like your back double bicep, I think it was, is you know what I mean, just watching your progression too is cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
thank you,
goes
thank
both
you.
ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to shout anyone out before I let you go, like any
Uh
sponsors or whatever?
yeah, I do have one sponsor. It's Legendary Labs. Their website's LEGLABS.com. They actually helped me a lot this prep, and it's a smaller company, but their products are like really solid, really good. If anyone wants to hit me up and ask any more about those products, that'd be cool. But it's a guy like that I'm friends with, and he sort of helped me out. So it's like a brand that I actually use, you know what I mean? So I've had other offers from other companies, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to use your stuff. I'm still going to buy this guy's stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I didn't really feel right about it. So I've just stuck with my guy, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem, man. For next time, I don't know who I'm gonna get on. I have no idea yet. I'm
I've
hoping
been watching though. Yeah, it's been awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's gonna be a pro that's been competing like either this week or week after. We'll see. But
Yeah.
I mean, I have like tons of people that I want to get on, like Cade,
Yeah.
like Evan,
Yeah.
like Sasan.
Yeah.
All those guys.
Oh, yeah. Sasan.
I have to
I
get
like to
them
hear a
on.
Sasan one.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, until next time, guys, and peace out.
Later, guys.